Hey guys, Erin Plays here, and today I thought it would be fun to go through a bunch of different controllers and talk about them. Some controllers you're going to be familiar with, while others you may not have seen before. So let's jump into it. So starting off, we have the SN30 Pro from 8BitDo. This is basically a Super Nintendo controller, but it has control sticks, and it's a USB controller, so I like to use this on the Switch a lot or for PC games. I really like this controller because it feels quality, like it has some weight to it. You know how some of the cheaper controllers, they feel like just really light and the buttons don't feel good, like the D-pad sucks, but this one, like the D-pad's good, the buttons feel good, the shoulder buttons feel good. It's a solid controller and I totally recommend it. So next up is the 6-button Sega Genesis controller from Retrobit. This is cool because they use the original Sega Genesis controller mold, I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. So you're basically getting a brand new Sega Genesis controller that's legit. And I like it because the buttons feel really good, the D-pad's awesome, and I like the color options. Like, I think this teal is just really cool and it's translucent, and anytime there's like translucent bright color controllers or electronics of any kind, I'm a sucker for them. So I like this controller a lot. And if you were wondering if it feels like an original Sega Genesis controller, I think it totally does, which is awesome. And speaking of translucent electronics, whenever someone brings up translucent color electronics, I think of the Nintendo 64. Because, you know, they had like the watermelon red, they had, I think it was called grape, they had the jungle green one, and they were all see-through, and it was awesome, and I miss that era of electronics so bad. And I love the way the N64 controller looks. I know it's a controversial controller, but I like it, and I just think this purple is so striking, and it's just awesome. And of course the watermelon red one. I just love these controllers so much. And I don't have an N64 that matches this, but I have the watermelon red N64 back there that matches this. So I'm happy because as a kid, I always wanted the watermelon red one. And my mom's like, you already have an N64, which is totally valid. You know, I had the regular black one, but this is just so much cooler. And of course, when talking about N64 controllers, you know, the joystick starts to drift as they age. So finding original N64 controllers that still have a really nice joystick, you know, it's harder to come by these days. So I'm really lucky that these are like still in really good condition and they're not all loose and bleh. And one more thing about the N64 controller. Do you remember when this was new and people were like debating like on how to hold it correctly? I remember I got this when I was a kid, and I remember holding it like this at first and like reaching my hand over like that to play it. And my hands were a lot smaller back then, so it was a mess. And then I remember going over to my friend's house and she was holding it like this, and my mind was blown. I was like, oh my god, that makes so much more sense. I think it's comfortable, and I like that it's so weird looking because it stands out and it's iconic. There are no other video game controllers that have such a unique shape. So up next we have the Vectrex controller. So these things are interesting because it's a beast of a controller. But what's cool about it is, you know, you can play it like on a flat surface, and then it feels like you're playing an arcade machine kind of. Like it's an interesting controller. It doesn't look like it should work in the sense of being comfortable, but it is. And if you're wondering why there's tape on the joystick right here, that's because it's just like a metal stick and your thumb slips off, so that's why there's tape here. It's not broken or anything, it makes it easier to play. And another thing I like how it's like a coiled cord. Like, it reminds me of an old school phone cord. I just like that. I don't know. They could have gone for just a straight, normal, like, cord, but no, it's coiled and it looks like a phone, and I appreciate that. And then what's cool about the Vectrex is if you don't like using this, you can use the Sega Genesis controller with it. But in order to use the Sega Genesis controller with the Vectrex, you need the Vec Adapt, so it's a little adapter for the controller. So if you don't like this thing, there are workarounds. So now let's enter the world of NES controllers. That is Nintendo Entertainment System controllers. So starting off, we have the NES Max. I hate this controller. It's really tiny and awkward, and instead of a D-pad, it's this little thing, this little circular deal that's just so awkward to use. Like, can you imagine playing like Castlevania with this? That should be a challenge. You can't do it. I mean, it has turbo, but at what cost? And of course there is the NES dog bone controller. This came with the NES top loader system, and some people really like it. I remember the first time I used it, I thought I would like it more than the classic rectangle NES controller, but I don't. I don't know. It's not super uncomfortable at first, but after playing a game for a while, I find it just not that cool. I like the original NES controller way better. And I get what they were trying to do. You know, they were trying to make it more ergonomic. They were trying to make it fit your hands better. And it should, in theory, but it's just a little too small, so maybe if you're like a small child, this would be fine. But maybe if it was bigger, it would be more comfortable. But it should work, but it doesn't. And next up, we have the Arkanoid controller. So, you know, Atari had paddle controllers, and I believe this is the only paddle controller made ever for the NES. And this works pretty good for playing Arkanoid. I like it. I think this button feels good. It's fun to press. You know how some buttons just feel good? This one feels good. But twisting this little knob right here, it feels like it should be awkward, like it's too small. But I don't know, I like it. For playing Arkanoid, I think it's a solid controller. I just wish it like looked cooler. This looks like it's kind of depressing looking. Like maybe they could have made it like red and black, or they could have made the Arkanoid stand out a little more. But I mean, it's fine. It works, and that's what's important. And next up is the zipper controller from Bishu. This is a NES turbo controller, and you can adjust how turbo you want your buttons over here. And they came in different colors. There was blue, yellow, there might have been red, I'm not sure, but I really like this green. I think it's just interesting because I don't have like any electronics that are this color green. It really stands out. But what's great about turbo controllers, you know how some games you're just tapping. I can't do that for long periods of time because it just murders my hands. So turbo controllers are awesome. It makes playing a game so much more enjoyable because I don't want to be in pain trying to get through something like Silver Surfer, you know, but you can just hold down A or B. I forget what the control is there. It's probably A, and you can just worry about playing the game and not about tap. So next up we have a Hudson Soft joystick controller for the Famicom. Now this was used in a championship they used to have in the early 90s called Summer Carnival, and so you would see footage of like kids playing like Rekka with this thing. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a good controller to play that game with. No, I couldn't do it, but it looks cool. I mean, it says Hudson Soft really big. You got the Hudson B there. I just think it's a really cool looking little joystick controller. And I like that there's a little button on top too, because it reminds me of like the old computer joysticks from back in the day. And I just think it's a cool little controller to have in my collection. Another Famicom controller I have is the Joy Ball for the Famicom. This is probably the weirdest controller I own. I don't know much about it except that instead of a joystick, it's a giant ball. So you're just supposed to do this, and there's A and B, and it's so weird. And it feels like it's gonna come off. Like, I don't know if it's just because this is old, but it's so weird. This is definitely, now that I think about it, this is probably the weirdest controller I have in my collection by far. And next up, we're taking a journey to present times, and this is the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. I know some people really like it, some people don't like it. I like it. I think out of all the Nintendo Switch controllers, this is probably my favorite one because it has some weight to it, so it doesn't feel like a cheap toy like some of those Power A controllers. I just gave one away. I wish I had one here. Those feel so light and crappy. I hate those controllers, but they're really cute. They have like Kirby on it or Link, and they look really awesome. But when you come to use it to play an actual game, it's just like, it's not that good. But the Pro controller, it's pretty good. I like it. I like that, you know what? It's also kind of translucent. It's not as translucent as I would prefer, but you can kind of see in there, so I appreciate it. Maybe we're kind of going back into translucent electronics. I sure hope so. So next up we have a random eBay purchase that I made a while back. This is a Pingu controller. That's right, Pingu, that animated show. I love it. I think Pingu is so cute. And there was a PlayStation game I think it was only released in Japan, but they made a special controller for it. I don't know why, but it's adorable. And you have Pingu and his little seal friend up there, and they don't do anything. They're just decoration. And it feels different than a regular PlayStation controller, and Pingu and his friend kind of get in the way of your fingers, but I just like it. I think it's cool. There's not much to say about it, but it's ridiculous, and I probably shouldn't have bought it, but I'm kind of glad I did. Remember these things, the Wii Mario Kart controllers? I remember when these first came out, I was like, oh, that could be cool, you know, like steering like this. It's not that cool. I like just using the regular Wiimote to play Mario Kart on Wii. But I appreciate the idea. You know, Wii accessories were out of control. I should probably do a separate video just on Wii accessories alone, because there was so much, and they all feel so cheap. It's so funny. But the Wii was a crazy era, and I still have these for whatever reason, even though I doubt I will ever use them again. Maybe I should. Maybe I should bring these back into my life. And this is the controller for the SNK Neo Geo AES. And this thing is awesome. This is such a quality controller, and the Neo Geo is probably one of the best systems ever. What I really like about this controller is you play it in your lap, and the joystick just feels awesome. And it does this little click. I love the click. It's a very noisy controller, and I know some people don't like that, but I personally love it. I love hearing the sound of the buttons and everything. And it's just, there's no bells and whistles. It's just all black, you know, because it was trying to be cool. Like, this is for the cool teenagers, not like Nintendo that's colorful and for kids, you know, like that was the vibe. And I really like this controller. It's really comfortable to use. I like how loud it is. I love how the joystick feels. It's just a quality controller for a quality system. So now let's talk about Panasonic 3DO controllers. So, you know, people rip on the system a lot, but I think they get it confused with the CDI. You know, they're both three letters. But there's some good stuff on the 3DO. There's a little bit. So the main thing I want to talk about is, so there's only one controller port on the front of the system. So if you want to do 2-player, you have to take off this little attachment right here that fits in the back, and you literally daisy chain them together. So you plug it in, and that's how you play a 2-player game. So you just keep connecting them. And I think that's really funny. Like, it sucks, but at least it's interesting and innovative, because I don't know of any other video game systems that have controllers like that. And next up we have the Sega Dreamcast controller. I really like this controller. It's a very unique shape, and I really like how it feels in your hands. And I like that it's a primary color scheme, but they're like kind of pastel colors on the buttons. I just think that's a cool touch. And then in the back you would put the little VMU card where you could store your game saves on it, and depending on the game you were playing, little characters would come up that you could see right here, and I just think that was always a really cute little touch. And one interesting thing is this little slot right here. So the controller wire comes out the bottom, which is kind of awkward. So you're supposed to put it in here like that, and I just think that's really weird. I mean, I guess because of the VMU card, that's why they don't have the wire coming out of the top, but I always thought that was kind of weird. But other than that, I think it's a pretty solid, cool controller. And of course, we have to talk about Wiimotes. So there's so much to say about Wiimotes, like these little gel covering things. Like, I had clear ones, and I remember they would get so dusty and gross and sticky. Like, they just felt like these silicone disgusting covers. This one's better, but I had some that felt disgusting. Like, I don't know if they just started deteriorating or what. And another thing about Wiimotes, I feel like everyone has a Wiimote that just is full of corroded batteries, and then you can't use it anymore. I feel like these were made just for getting disgusting. But that being said, the Wiimotes were, you know, this is an innovative thing. The Wii era was really cool. You could hold it like this, and of course they want you to wear the strap like that, so you're not like one of those people that like does this too hard and then it throws it through the monitor, you know? I don't know, I think they're designed pretty well. I like Wiimotes. They're a little awkward to use if you're doing this, but it works. It's just So, you know, if you're playing a side scroller like this, yeah, that sucks, but then they have the classic controller, so I would always use that if I was playing like a side scroller or something. But yeah, Wiimotes. And they came in so many different ones. Like this one, I have the Bowser one, got a Toad one, and then you got the Zelda one that's gold for Skyward Sword. There was just so many different Wiimotes to collect, and I don't know, I think they were cool. Now it's time to talk about the Intellivision controller. So I'm not gonna lie, these things are awkward and weird and not that awesome to use, but I appreciate the weirdness. But the cool thing is each game came with these little cards and you slide them in here. And so that way you would know what buttons were appropriate for the game you're playing. And plus they were themed. So I think that was a really cute little touch. So for example, Kool-Aid Man only uses the top 3 buttons. And I like the artwork. I like how it would say the game name up here. And it just makes an otherwise kind of boring controller just a little cooler. And Atari also had something like this. It was like a kid's controller for the Sesame Street games. And it also had a little overlay you would put in. I don't know which one came first. But yeah, kind of similar. But yeah, the Intellivision controller. Next up we have the ColecoVision controller. It is a lot like the Intellivision controller, but I think this is a little better. It doesn't have the overlays, but it does have a joystick instead of the disc that the Intellivision has. And it kind of looks like a phone, you know, with the way the buttons are. And it does have a numbered keypad, you know, like the Intellivision, but I feel like these buttons feel a little better, and they click more, which is cool. I don't know, there's not much to say about it, but I do think it's a little better than the Intellivision controller. So the main difference is this has a little disc that would spin and that you like go side to side with, where this has an actual joystick, which makes it a little better. But that's the main difference. And you know, it's bigger and this is more comfortable to use. Next up we have one of the worst controllers ever. It is for the Atari 5200. And I say that because the joystick would break pretty quickly with a lot of people, and then you would essentially have a useless gaming system, which sucks. But later on people started refurbishing them so you could get a decent 5200 controller, which is pretty cool. And like the Intellivision and ColecoVision, it has the number keypad. So that was definitely the era of keypad controllers. And it does have a pause, reset, and a start on top. But yeah, this is the Atari 5200 controller. I don't know what else to say about it. And back in the day, if your controller did break, you know, you could go to the store and get the other controllers like the Wico controller, but those weren't really good either. So you were kind of just out of luck when it came to the Atari 5200, unfortunately. But it also had a trackball controller, so you could play games like Missile Command and Centipede, and that one actually worked pretty well. So you could at least play those games. And lastly, we have the Barbie gamepad. That's right, it's a Barbie PlayStation 1 controller. I like that it's silver with the little flowers on it. I just think that is so cute. And it even came with Barbie's own PS1 and controllers for her, so she can play along with you. Now, there was a lot of Barbie games for the PlayStation 1, so that's probably why they made this, but I just think it's awesome that they made this, because where's Barbie controllers now? Where's my Barbie Switch controller? I want one. So listen, I know I didn't cover every single controller out there, but maybe in the future I'll do another controller video, but even then, I won't cover every single controller out there because I don't own every single controller, and there's just so many out there that it would go on and on. It could be a whole series. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon, and let me know if you would like to see more controller videos in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye!